Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. Welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm excited to be talking to Matt Desmier, who is currently Business Engagement and Knowledge Exchange Manager for the Faculty of Media and Communication at Bournemouth University. I say currently because Matt is a man of many talents, who has occupied a number of positions over the years, and thanks to his creative brilliance, fulfilled those roles with considerable success. Those of you that know Matt will equate him in being instrumental in establishing one of the UK's leading creative and digital economies right here in Bournemouth, as well as his time at the Enterprise Pavilion, an incubator that saw an astonishing 75 businesses launched within just 5 years, and spectacularly those businesses experiencing a 95% survival rate. Matt has that special blend of creative and business acumen, which makes him a renowned and sought-after problem solver. He is also an expert in hosting events and has a lot to say about the events sector and the direction in which that is headed. He also speaks openly about his struggles with depression and how his entrepreneurial life, and by his own admission his own ego, led to his breakdown of his marriage. Thankfully though, that story has a happy ending, as you'll hear during the course of our conversation. It is a really great episode, fueled by Matt's energy and sharp takes on a number of different subjects. I know you'll enjoy the show. Welcome, Matt, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here, Warren.
Yeah, I'm really excited about our conversation today because I think there's so much to cover. There's, the creative, the digital sectors. There's how you've evolved as an individual, the effects it's had on you. There is your passion for events. There is so much to discuss, but we should really kick off for what most people in the kind of conurbation will know you for, is that you were instrumental back in the early 2000s to, onwards in creating what is known as one of the leading digital and creative kind of economies within Bournemouth, with some of the support you gave and the connections you made and all of those kind of things. So I really should probably just start with that obvious question. What really excites you about the creative and digital sector, Matt?
So the creative and digital sector en masse, I trained as a designer, so I went to art college. I did 5 years at art school. I wasn't the world's greatest designer, but what I did learn was about problem solving and how a creative approach to problem solving, about looking at things in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And I guess from that was what really excited me. You can see there's creativity in all industries, but when you have pure creativity and that the way in which that mind works and the way in which it approaches issues and problems and hurdles, and it comes at things from a slightly different angle, that gets me going. I enjoy that sort of thing.
Okay, so it's so, because I know you've said on your website, and I've seen you write blogs and mentioned it before, you really see that you see the world through this kind of different lens. When did you really become aware that was the case?
Oh God, that was probably as a kid, right?
It's been there from day one.
Yeah, when everyone around me was saying that guy's weird. I think it was that art school, art school experience. 5 years of just a free rein to think about things in a different way, to be surrounded by people who think differently.
Yeah.
So it gives you that freedom, right? You don't feel constrained. You are actively pushing against doing things the way they've always been done.
Yeah.
So it makes you think, there's got to be a better way of doing this.
Okay.
And so I was taught the skills of how you analyze a problem, how you think about it, how you see it in its environment and the ethnography of the context that sits around something, and how those things all influence it. And so I see the world through rose-tinted spectacles, but I see them from a real helicopter place as well. So I love thinking around something.
So what really interests me about you then is there's a lot of people that do go to Arts University or become designers and do the creative, but they can't always then bring that into the real world and join the dots up. So what makes you have that ability, you think, to then have that free thinking, be creative, see the world through a different lens, but bring it into the real world and make things happen?
Right, so this is all my dad's fault then.
Okay.
So growing up, my dad worked as a software engineer. And he was very fortunate, or we were very fortunate, that he worked for a company called Schlumberger, and he ended up being the managing director there, and he was constantly going to America.
Okay.
He commuted between Wimborne and San Jose. And so he was in Silicon Valley in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was seeing all of that stuff, but he's a manager. He's a finance guy. So he's
very analytical.
And I had that analytical thing from him. Obviously, as a kid, I'm reacting against it. So I want to do anything but be analytical. Yeah. But I could see the processes that he went through and applied things. So then, I rebelled. I went to art school eventually. But coming out of that, I knew I wasn't the world's greatest designer, right?
Yeah.
And so I needed to get a job. And I had a degree, but I figured that's not enough. I wanted a master's degree.
Yeah.
So I then did a master's degree in corporate communication, which was international branding, and that was the business side of things. So I've got the creativity there, but then I went to a business school and I learnt the business mechanics of something.
And then had that ability to put 1 + 1 together and create something. And
again, right place, right time. I worked for Business Link Wessex.
Yeah.
So I was part of the innovation team at Business Link Wessex, and they encouraged me to go into businesses. So I'm working alongside straight business advisors, people who are running manufacturing businesses or retail businesses who have a set number of steps that they've got to go through, they've got a plan, and I'm coming in there with a crazy art school brain going, why don't we try it like this?
Yeah.
Let's try it like this. And I guess personality won through, and they went,
okay, we'll give it a go.
We'll do what you've just said. Yeah,
brilliant. And moving through your career, you then one of the successes I think that I recognise you for is that time you spent with the Enterprise Pavilion.
Yeah.
And that kind of incubator, and even now that you look at businesses locally like Adido, Three-Sided Cube, Crowstar, these significant employers in the area all came through that incubator at the Enterprise Pavilion.
Yeah, that was a wonderful, wonderful time.
Yeah. So what was that role really like then?
So I'd been working for Business Link Wessex, part of the innovation team, and my role there was as kind of a university engagement person. I was the one who was going into the universities and looking for the spin-out companies and those sorts of things.
Okay.
And then I'd end up writing marketing plans for them and business plans, and we'd go and raise funding through angel or VC investment. So I had that connection, and I remember back before he was at Dorset Chamber, Peter Scott.
Okay.
Back in the day, Peter Scott was the head of business development for Arts University. And I'd had a conversation with him as they were digging the ground out for this Enterprise Pavilion. And he just said, I think you'd be great at this. Yeah. And me being me went, yeah, I think I'd be great at that too. So I got him right at the start. I think when I took over running the Enterprise Pavilion, there were two tenants, Adido and Crowstar.
Ah.
They were the two tenants. And then we ended up, in the 5 years that I ran it, We filled it. We launched 75 businesses over those 5 years.
75.
With a 95% survival rate. You know, it was the stats that we had were unheard of. To the point that myself and Stuart Bartholomew, who was the then principal and chief exec, were invited to Brussels to give a talk to the European Commission on how have you made this thing a success where no one else can.
And I've got to ask that obvious question then, haven't I, really? It's, you know, what was different about that Enterprise Pavilion as an incubator that created those successes?
So, I suppose there's two things. One was we made it really difficult to get in. Okay, so I had because it was a funded place, we were part of a university, and I didn't have to worry too much. I had targets and I had a P&L sheet, and I had to stay in the black, but I didn't have to worry too much about generating profit because it's a university, so they're not allowed to. They're a charity. So I had a certain amount of freedom, so I could quite happily sit on empty rooms. I didn't have to fill it.
Yeah.
So I made it difficult to get in. You had to have a written business plan. And then I sort of told you, there's a waiting list. And I made you wait 3 months. I kept a conversation going.
Okay.
And then when you could come in, I made you share a room with someone. I made these hurdles because I wanted the right people. The success of the building would be predicated on the right community of people in the building. And they had to understand that this was a real opportunity. They had to have a plan. They needed to grow. It was about collaboration. They were all creative and digital companies. So there was an awful lot of collaboration that went on. So if I made it difficult to get in, the also-rans who were like,
filtered themselves away.
I'll go to Regis, I'll go to wherever arena, whereas the ones that said no, we get the benefits of being in here. So I weeded out the wheat from the chaff that way. But then once they were in, I threw everything in the kitchen sink at them.
Right.
I had a marketing department that acted on their behalf. We did business development on their behalf because, and this was the other reason, my ego meant that my success was predicated on the success of the people in there. So, and I wasn't about to
fail or not succeed
I'd put on events. I'd go out and go to every networking event possible. And as soon as there was an opportunity, I'd go, I know the guy you need for that. They're in the Enterprise Pavilion.
Yeah.
Or, Molly Regan's doing this wonderful stuff with textiles. You should come to the Enterprise Pavilion.
So you really created this kind of ecosystem around them, and not just,
it wasn't just about
a co-working space or an easy route to start a business with a bit of support around it. It was an ecosystem.
It wasn't so much about the individual businesses. It was about a collective of businesses that so we'd only ever have 2 or 3 graphic designers in there. We'd only ever have 2 or 3 web designers in there. There'd only ever 2 ad agencies in there. So they weren't competing.
Yeah.
They were able to share resources. They were able to share experiences. And I also spent a lot of money on bacon. So every Friday morning, we'd have bacon sandwiches. And it forced people into the same room.
And they connect.
Yeah, you'll be surprising how alluring the smell of bacon can be.
You only need to be walked down the street and smell it on a Sunday morning, don't you? Where's my breakfast? And those connections, do you think have stayed? Do you reflect now on, we've talked about 3 or 4 of the successes, but do those businesses still connect with each other?
Yeah. You can see, So look at James and Rob from Quostar. They're still out and about, treading the boards of all the networking events. I know that they still speak to some of the guys from Adido. They'll still speak to a guy who used to be at Thinking Juice, and he now works for a major financial services company, and they're probably supplying the back end systems to those guys.
Yeah.
And it was about creating those connections. That was why I forced people to share an office. Yeah. If you could just afford an office on your own, then you're probably not the person we want in the building. I want you to speak to people.
Yeah.
And so those connections exist, and it's testament to the quality of the businesses that came out there that they're still going now.
It's brilliant, isn't it? And but it's one of my adages is you put like-minded people together and great things can happen. It's just this. It's it's fairly simple sometimes.
It sounds like common sense,
Yeah.
right? But again, back to my dad, I remember when in my early days at Business Link, and I was talking about writing some marketing plan for a startup, and I was just there, sat at home doing it, just going, this is just common sense, Dad. I am literally just writing common sense. And he went, no, it's common sense to you, but this is Greek to someone else. Some people don't think like this. Don't underestimate the fact that you find it easy. It's of huge value to someone else.
So where do you sit on that business planning bit and writing a business plan? Because there's kind of like, there's on one scale, people don't plan at all. And on the other scale, they can do this kind of 200-page document that kind of gives a thud on the desk, gets put in a drawer and ignored. So where do you sit on that business planning kind of process, and what does a good process look like for you?
So for me, it was, I want you to commit something to paper.
Okay.
I don't care if it's 1 page, 2 page, 20 page, 200 pages.
Yeah.
I want you to commit something to paper, because you can think about, I think about stuff constantly all the time, and I've got thoughts buzzing around my head. But when I write them down, I move into a different kind of thought process. The right hand side of my brain takes over, and I have to link things together, and you start connecting the dots when you write stuff down. And so all I wanted was someone to go, I've got this wonderful business idea. And I was like, brilliant, write it down, because that process of writing it down will make you see the problems, will make you see the hurdles, and it will, you might not resolve them. You might just write a list of, I ought to think about these things, but it makes you think about it. So, yes, I think a business plan should have a beginning, middle, and end, right? No one ever gets in the car and just goes, I'm going to drive. Yeah. Right? They'll have a destination in mind.
Yeah.
And so it's like, right, well, if I'm going there, then I can probably take this route. Yeah. Or then I'd hit some roadworks. Now I've got to change route. Yeah. But at least I had an idea of where I was going. That's all I'm ever interested in a business plan.
Fantastic. So you had that time, you had that role, and then you stepped out into the kind of world of entrepreneurship and going alone. So what led to that, and how did that feel? Because you went from being part of a corporate kind of public sector entity into stepping out into the world.
Yeah, I'd been working. I'd done, I don't know, 4 years at Business Link. I'd done 5 or 6 years at Arts University. I did a brief stint at Southwest Screen, which was part of the Film Council, as it evolved into Creative England. And all that while, I was advising businesses, and I was seeing what they were doing. And I was like, you know what, I can do that. I can do that. And what originally, when I first launched Wise Old Uncle, the idea was I would work with one digital agency, one design agency, and one film company, and I would create an umbrella big ad agency. I can go and generate new business for these 3 guys. And that was the original plan, just because my wife and I just had our second child. I was driving all over the place. I was getting up at 6 a.m. and commuting to Bristol, not getting back till 8, 9 o'clock, and I wasn't seeing the kids. I was like, I didn't have kids to not see them.
Yeah,
so I just wanted
an existence.
I wanted some more control. At the same time, I launched Silicon Beach, the conference, and that became all-consuming, and there was no way I was going to be able to do that for anybody else. That, the way I ran it, the way I delivered it, the things that we did, that wouldn't have worked with me working for someone else.
It's interesting, because I was going to talk to you about Silicon Beach and that conference, and you also did Meat Draw, and you got that off the ground with some others and stuff. But your events always seem to be challenging the norm. So what do you think makes a good business event?
A good business, I guess it's having a focus, right? Yeah. And it's about Bournemouth, or the urban conurbation of Southeast Dorset, BCP, call it whatever it will. It's a relative, although what are we, the 9th or 10th largest urban conurbation in the country now. But to all intents and purposes, it's quite small. And I've seen you at countless events, and we always see the same people at all the same events. So I just didn't want to organise another one of those events. I wanted something that would get people talking about it. I wanted marketing in an event is incredibly hard. So that generating a fear of missing out, generating something that will live on beyond the couple of hours that you're in a room together. You want those people that were in the room to go away and talk to their friends and colleagues about it. So they become your advocates, they become your evangelists, they sell the event for you.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't want to do was just constantly pump out an email newsletter and reinvent the wheel every single time. So it was like, right, if I create something different, then people will gravitate towards it. If I create more than one thing, so I didn't start Meat Draw, but I got involved quite early on, and then I launched Silicon Beach, and then that's the way to do it, and open source, and numerous other events. The idea was then that I become synonymous with what a good event is, so that if I put something on, that's the branding thing in me. Yeah. They'll always associate me.
Right, it's going to be different. Right,
we need to go to that event, and so it becomes easier to get people to come.
Given this post-COVID world and everything happening online or not, whatever the case may be, where do you think the event sector is going?
That's an interesting question, right? Because when I was running Silicon Beach, I promoted it. In fact, when myself, George and Giles ran Open Source as well, our other alternative networking event, the thing that we put out in the world, the product, as it were, that we were presenting to people were the talks, the people that were speaking, the things you're going to learn. But that's not why people come. People come because of the connections and the networking and all of those things. But I couldn't sell that. You can't sell a networking event.
It's intangible, yeah.
So the carrot you dangle is the people that are going to be speaking there. But the experience that people are coming for is everybody else in the room. And one of the things that I found during the great pandemic and the lockdown was people tried to move that offline experience onto an online world. Yeah. And we'll start presenting, here's so-and-so speaking.
Yeah. Here's Bob, here's Sue. Here they go. Yeah.
And what we then lost was the actual intangible, the networking bit. And then it becomes, well, actually, if I'm going to see so-and-so speaking, I can just go on YouTube and there I can see that talk 101 times. So the value exchange, I'm not going to pay for that because I can get it free there. So I stepped away. I wasn't going to get involved in that. That's just not my bag. Last week, I had the pleasure of programming the British Interactive Media Association's annual conference. And so I'd been working on it for about 6 months. And when they came to me and said they wanted to do something, they said, we're going to do it hybrid. And I was like, no, well, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Actually,
categorically,
I don't want to do that. I can get you some amazing people to be the speakers. And I had Sir Martin Sorrell, did the opening talk, and we had him interviewed by 4 students from various universities. I had the head of brand for Google in the UK. It's a phenomenal lineup of people. But the really exciting part of the event were the networking breaks, was the lunch and the coffee break. And you could see the people engaging and speaking to each other and the connections being made. And then when you see that writ large out across social media, across Twitter and LinkedIn, the write-ups on LinkedIn, it's about the people that they met.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I need to get back to that. I think
create the energy.
The event.
Yeah.
It's energy, that's the word.
Yeah.
It's the energy. And I think the problem with online events is that energy is sucked out of the room.
Yeah.
We're sat at home with a laptop in front of us. We've potentially got an iPad going here. You've got your kids running around there. The TV might be on the right. You've got so many distractions. It's so easy.
You're not engaged in the same way, are you?
And then they might shift to an online networking space, but it's really painful.
Yeah.
I sit in my new role now at Bournemouth University. We do lots of online meetings, and they're laborious. They're tiring. They're really tiring. Sitting in a Teams room with 6 other people, trying to speak over one another and managing the chat. It's like, I need a nap.
Just need, I think both of us, our arms are flying in there. Listen, we're body language people, aren't you? And you just can't convey that on Zoom,
90% of our communication is body language, and it's just not happening online. So I get that there is a space for it, and I'm embracing it and learning opportunities. I did some brilliant online courses during lockdown, and I would do them again in a heartbeat. But I didn't network with anyone. I didn't meet anyone.
You were going there for something, a different purpose, though, weren't
yes.
you? To increase your knowledge and intellect.
And it was because I understood why I was going there. So, I get it. Look, we can have brilliant speakers online and there might be some connection, but I just don't think it's a business model that pays dividends.
So is this you opening the door to new events?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, so I am now it's the world's longest business title. So I am the business...
I have got it written down. It's quite long.
Don't. It's the Business Engagement and Knowledge Exchange Manager for Faculty of Media and Communication at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Effectively, I've got to go out and engage businesses and sell the expertise within one faculty, and it's the National Centre for Computer Animation, it's the media production team, it's the advertising and communication, it's the law school, and it's going to be event driven. I'm going to launch some events. They already have them. The BFX Festival. I'm going to get involved in that and see if we can raise its profile again back to its glory days from before. I want to bring in some more speakers. I want to, the university for all its benefits to the community, I think it's been a bit of an ivory tower and slightly impenetrable. I want to break those barriers down.
It's interesting, isn't it, generally, about this kind of gap of understanding and resistance. And it's both ways. It's two ways, between the private and the public sector. And I think between the kind of entrepreneurial and academic sector, it's even worse. And I say it's two ways. There's like a lack of understanding or a lack of engagement or a lack of how each can help each other. So that's something you're going to have to break down, isn't it, in this new role? And how are you going to do that?
Well, so the thing that always gets me is when I speak to companies and I'm like, we can't get the graduates, we can't recruit decent graduates out of the university. How do we get in front of them? I'm like, you're forgetting the university's point. Yeah. Its purpose is academic rigor. It is there to extend the knowledge of an industry base. It's about research. It's about pushing the boundaries of what that subject is about. It's not a vocational centre. Yeah. It's not a conveyor belt of people. Talent. Yeah. Now, there is a conveyor belt of talent that comes through it, but I don't think it's not the university's number one reason for being. Now, with the introduction of my role and three other peers that are in similar roles in different faculties, I think the university has recognised that it needs to better link with industry. So how am I going to break those barriers down? I'm going to invite people in. I'm going to try and create those better links. Those poor academics, whether they're doing teaching and learning or research, that's been their focus. And again, the lockdown caused their world to change and they had to adapt. So they haven't had the time or inclination to build these links. I think it's incumbent upon me to build those links.
Fantastic. Great answer.
And I'm excited by it.
And what's really interesting is, like you say, you're one of four, aren't you, that have recently been appointed or in post?
So I'm in the Faculty of Media and Communication. Finn Morgan is in the Faculty of Science and Technology. Rachel Clark, which is at the Business School. And Mary Ann is within the Health and Social
So there is a real commitment by the university to go out and engage.
Absolutely. And it's being led at the front by Ian Jones, who I'm sure, everyone locally will have known him because he's been in every meeting going. So he's kind of leading the charge.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but it's testament to the university recognising that it needs to change.
So you have gone full circle, haven't you? And we talk about the journey and the evolve to succeed kind of piece, and everybody's on their journey, and you've gone full circle from, that kind of public sector, slightly corporate world, kind of into that entrepreneurial space where significant chunk of time, succeeded in that world, and now you're coming back into the kind of public sector.
Yeah, I mean,
how does that feel?
So I'm excited by the challenge. It was what, I think I'd become exhausted.
It's tiring.
Running your own business and the pressures that come with that. Mine was a one-man band. I call it a business. It was me, right? Yeah. Yes, I had a limited company, but it was me. And so I was doing everything. I was working with lots of collaborators, but it's exhausting. And the role that I'd had previously at Arts University when I was head of Enterprise, right? I was business engagement and knowledge exchange manager for Arts University. The timing was just perfect. This role came up at the university, and like, you know what? I think I can enact some positive change. I haven't gone into it because I needed a job. I've gone into it because it was a job I wanted to do.
It's a belief that you can make a difference.
This is about my personal values, right? Yeah. I need to be able to sleep at night. Yeah. And that means I don't want to be dreading the next day. I don't want it to be about the money, although I want to make sure the mortgage is paid. And
got to be financially secure.
And I've got to be excited by it. So the opportunity, the expertise that exists within that university and its potential to help the business community of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole and wider to grow. I think, economically we're in a really weird, unstable time. And there is a hell of a lot of support that an institution like the university can lend to the local business community that will enable it to weather whatever storm is ahead of us. And I'm going to be excited that my name is
part of that story.
Yeah, my name's there. I'm the guy making that happen.
Brilliant. And again, you've been really honest over the years, and I hope you don't mind us talking about it now, about perhaps your own struggles at times. From a mental health, perspective, and maybe it comes back through seeing the world through a different lens. I don't know. But how have those periods in your life where you've had some of those mental health challenges, and perhaps if you're okay, please do share them, because I always think that benefits others, and perhaps that periods of anxiety had on your life, and how have you managed to overcome those challenges? Because I think that's the important bit.
So when I was in my early 20s, so I'm 48 now, and so in my early 20s I was diagnosed with ME. Or post-viral fatigue syndrome, and it manifested itself as mild depression and anxiety, and then it's over the years it's led to bouts of insomnia, and it ebbs and flows. And I took treatment for it. I've been medicated for it. That didn't work for me in particularly. I know it works for a lot of people. It just wasn't a solution that I liked. I've done therapy, which I thought was amazing. And I've learnt to recognise when I can feel a bout of mild, I call it mild depression because I'm sure people suffer from a far worse version of it than I do, but I can see it coming. I can see this cloud looming over me, and I've developed mechanisms and personal tips, personal way. Mindfulness is a great tool that I use. I go running an awful lot just to keep my mind busy and active and thinking. I spend an awful lot of time thinking, meditate. Not meditating, but I suppose it is. Yeah, meditating. So I've learnt to deal with it over the years. Now there have been times when I've not dealt with it particularly well, and I'm looking back towards a time probably around 2014, 2015. Silicon Beach was all encompassing, and so much of my identity was tied up in Silicon Beach. I mean, me and Silicon Beach were synonymous with each other, and I think I let it get away from me a little bit. and it had a really detrimental effect on my family life. So actually in 2016 my wife and I split up, and I partly put that down to me becoming, almost manically obsessed with me and my identity.
Kind of ego got in the way.
Absolutely. My ego was off the chart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's off the chart most days, but in 2015, 2016, it was on another level. And my wife had to suffer with that, and the kids bore the brunt of it. And, I became so disconnected from the family unit.
And it's easily done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not. You just get caught up in your own hype sometimes,
August 2016, my wife and I split up, and then it was kind of 2018 when I really settled into therapy. Like I went out.
And that was the wake up call.
Yeah. So I engaged in a quite an intense period of cognitive behavioral therapy, which was amazing, and I saw the world in a new way. The lights were switched on. It was almost like I see where, and it was at that time that I stopped Silicon Beach. I pulled the plug on it.
Yeah.
And again, that then led to another period of depression because my identity, I'd lost.
It's easy to know that was the thing doing some of the damage, but to switch it off then creates a whole different kind of set of things.
And then weirdly, I come through this, and all the while I'd met someone else. I was being supported by it. She was wonderful, an amazing woman who happened to run a well-being consultancy. Okay. So I was getting coached all the way through that, and then she and I split up. At which point, my wife and I, although we had divorce papers, we hadn't signed them, and we started dating again.
Amazing.
Obviously, we'd stayed friends because of the kids, and we'd recognised each other's part that we played in the downfall of our marriage. So yeah, Christmas. It was around Christmas 2019. We'd started dating again, and then lockdown happened in the Easter. Which was a godsend for us in many ways. Yeah. I don't want to take anything away from all the terrible, terrible things that went on around the world, but for us it meant I moved back into the family home. We had a family unit, and we were locked within the same walls for a year. If we can't survive that, or if we can survive
through this.
We can survive anything. So the perils of an entrepreneurial life certainly took its toll. Yeah. But I am incredibly fortunate that I've come through it the other side.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
That's all right. I did a video for Dorset Mind. Actually, that was probably 2017. Again, probably at quite a low point for me. But I did a video for Dorset Mind because I'd said to them, I'm a exuberant bumblebee of a person. I am, when people see me, I am this eternally positive, optimistic, happy-looking guy. I've got an unbearable laugh, incredibly loud. It might surprise people to know that I suffer from mental health issues. Yeah. And if by me speaking about it can help someone else, then I'm also
really important.
It's I've got no shame attached to it.
No.
I'm
there is no shame.
No, exactly. That's the point.
Yeah,
that is the point.
Definitely. So, what the Matt I have before me today? How is he now different, having gone through those experiences? Reconciled back with the family, and realised some of the kind of errors, mistakes, or things that weren't going right. How different is the Matt I have before me today to the one that I would have met in 2015?
Well, I'd like to say...
Perhaps I should ask your wife.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I'm more aware. I guess I'm more aware, but whether or not that's because of the experience that I've had, or if that's just an age thing,
it's maturity.
It's maturity. I've got teenage kids now, so I'm looking at my teenage kids, thinking, "Oh Christ, right? I need to be some kind of. I mean, I probably should have thought this long ago, but I need to be some kind of of barometer for them. They need to see good behaviour and good activity reflected in the people around them. So maybe I'm doing a bit more of that. I am certainly more diplomatic than I ever was. You know, I tended to have no filter, so my mouth runs away with me. I always used to think I've got thick skin and wide shoulders. I can take anything anyone's going to throw at me, and I just assumed that everyone else was the same. I'm now very aware that they're not.
Yeah.
So maybe I choose my words a bit wiser than I did before, but. You know, none of my enthusiasm has been diminished. If anything, it's on steroids. Yeah. You know, right now with the sun shining, a new job, all of these great opportunities that I see ahead of me, I'm on fire.
Fantastic. Well, that's good to hear. And watch this space, listeners. Matt is on fire. So as we start to kind of come to the end, just a few sort of quick, short answers.
Yep.
What qualities do you look for in people that work with you?
It's got to be integrity and trustworthiness, right?
Yeah.
I remember doing a video with a young girl over in Portsmouth, and she asked me what my 3 business ethics were. And number 1 of those was I've got to like the people I'm working with. So, you know, if I don't like you, then there's going to be somewhere along the way, the project or whatever we're working on, we are going to come to blows about it. I can disagree with you, but I've got to like you. I've got to trust that you share the same integrity that I do. So that's it. I think, you know, technical skills you can teach. It's those intangible soft skills. And I want to know that person is as committed to whatever we're working on as I am.
Yeah. You're in it together.
Yeah.
With honesty and integrity. I love that. I did say some quick, sharp questions, but
sorry,
this may be a big one. No, this one may be a big one, so I apologise. Where do you think the creative and digital sector is going?
Ooh. Right. So I'm going to be that person that states the bleeding obvious, okay? But then I'm going to put it in context.
Okay.
The internet has changed everything. An easy sweeping statement to make, but what I mean by that, and certainly from a creative agency as a supplier of services point of view, is back in the early 2000s when Web 1.0 and the internet was first, you know, really taking force. It was a black box of secrets that no one knew about. You had to go to an expert to deliver something for you. Web 2.0's come along and it suddenly became about democratization of anyone can do anything. So now we're at this position where, you know, anyone can put a Facebook ad together. They've leveled the playing field apparently in terms of the skill set you need. So everyone's become an expert. I can look up anything and everything I want. If I want to do it myself, I'm going to do it myself. And what's happened is the value we ascribe to someone delivering a service is diminishing. And I think that's a bad thing, you know. Yeah, I could launch a Facebook ad, but it's going to be useless compared to an agency that specialises in Facebook ads. And then I've got someone who's going to charge me £250 a day and someone who's going to charge me £800 a day. And I've got no way of demonstrating
kind of understanding where that knowledge...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that little bit of knowledge is a bad thing, because now I suddenly see, well, I can do that, so I'm going to go with the 250 guy because the people charge me £800. They're clearly ripping me off, when actually that's probably not the case. So I think the way that we're going to see the agency landscape change is, we've already seen it. There's been an explosion of small agencies. We're going to see more and more specialist niche agencies that are really, really good at one thing. And they're going to find ways in which they can connect and work with other agencies. So I'm then going to have like a social agency, a strategy agency, a web build agency, a design agency, all small 3, 4, 5 man bands. And what you're going to need is someone above them.
Plugging it all together.
Now, what would be wonderful would be if the people plugging it all together were the marketing directors inside the clients.
Yeah.
That actually they become better educated about how to manage these projects. Now, the problem they've then got is managing a bunch of relationships with a bunch of creative people is like herding cats.
Yeah.
And they've got a day job of marketing whatever
they're
company
accountable. They're accountable to results.
So that's where I think the tension lies. And the guys that are going to do it really well are the businesses that recognise marketing is more than one person. That social media is not marketing, that product and price and place and promotion all work together, and that marketing requires a department. It requires more than one people. Now, what I was doing previously as wise old uncle was I was that person. And it meant that I would come in and I'd do a day a week with someone. I would be the add-on to your marketing director. I'm the strategy guy. I've got the connections. I'll help you manage that. And I think we're going to see a rise in those roles.
Okay. It's interesting. Great insight.
Even though I've just stepped out of doing that.
So final question for you, Matt. What does success mean for you with everything you've learned and the journey you've been on? What's personal success now mean for you?
This smile on my face.
Okay.
It's
simple as that.
It's as simple as that. I did get asked this in a conversation probably about 3 months ago. It was with a finance director of a company, and I was pitching to do some work with them, and they asked that question: what does success look like? And I was like, well, it looks like the mortgage being paid and the kids being fed, and like, but how many holidays do you want? It's like, I haven't been on holiday in 6-7 years. I'm not that bothered by it. I live in Bournemouth. I don't need to go on holiday. Success is freedom. Success is freedom to work on projects that excite me. Success is the ability to surround myself with interested, like-minded, enthusiastic people. Success is seeing my kids blossom and knowing that there is going to be a world or a job for them to inhabit. That's success.
Brilliant. Thank you. I've loved our conversation, Matt. I could probably go on for ages, but you've hit the limit. So I'm sure we'll continue our discussion after we switch off the recording. It's been a great discussion to have with you. Good luck in the new role with Bournemouth University. If you have half the success you did in the role with the Enterprise Pavilion, you'll make a big impact on the conurbation.
That's very nice of you to say. Thanks for having me.
So good luck with that new role. If people do want to connect with you, learn more about your role at the university and engage with the university, where can they go?
I would say the best place would be LinkedIn. Okay. Find me on LinkedIn.
Matt Desmier.
Matt Desmier on LinkedIn.
Perfect. There you are. Thank you for being a great guest.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.